Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about boundary setting. How can we learn to set boundaries? Why are boundaries important? And really why boundaries are the most critical thing when it comes to not only self-compassion, but expressing compassion for other people as well. But before I get into today's video, I just wanted to welcome you guys. For those of you who are new, welcome to our family, welcome to our community. And for those of you who are not subscribed, go ahead and do so. I post videos every Friday. I wanted to let you guys know that I do have a free Facebook community, and I'm going to leave the link in the description. But essentially it's a community filled with amazing parents and probably those invested in their own personal development, just like you probably are if you clicked on this video. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. How many of you would say that you care a lot about what people think? That you tend to overcommit yourself, spread your time too thin, are so worried about others judging you and being critical of you? We say yes to things even though we don't want to, and we say yes to things when we don't have the time. So if you're anything like me or who I used to be, you're probably the type of person who cares so much about what other people think that you tend to check in on them more than you check in on yourself. And then you abandon your own needs and your own values and your own beliefs. When we don't clearly define our boundaries, we let people do things that aren't okay and get away with behaviors that aren't okay. We let go of our control because we're so focused on other people in our lives and trying to please everyone and being this perfect person. But what happens when you keep following through with this pattern is that you just become resentful and hateful of the people that keep doing these things to you in your life. And maybe it's your own personal boundaries, not necessarily with other people, but you do things to yourself over and over again that you know are just hurting you. And you haven't clearly defined a line where, you know what, I'm not going to do this to myself anymore. I'm not going to talk badly about myself anymore. I'm not going to let my appearance affect the way that I feel. For me, this was a big one. This was a huge thing that I had to overcome because I was so overcritical and analyzing every move that I made in front of people and just constantly worrying about what I looked like, what I sounded like, what I did for a living, what books I read, what music I listened to. Everything became this sort of judgment, and it was basically just ruining my life. I would spend way too much time thinking about these things and not actually asking myself, well, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I want to say? And once you ask yourself those questions and you really try to figure out what you like, who you are, and who you would like to be, everything becomes so much clearer. And you tend not to worry about what other people think of you, as long as it makes you happy and you're doing what you want to do. The most compassionate people in our life tend to be the most boundary people. In order to be compassionate and to have empathy and connect with people, you have to know yourself and you have to know what your limits are. I realized, what if people are just doing the best that they can? What if people are struggling just like me? And they're having those off days, they're trying to figure themselves out. They might be saying hurtful things or overstepping or not doing their part. But what if they're doing enough? What if they're doing the best they can based on their situation? And when you make those kinds of assumptions about people, those assumptions that say, hey, we're all struggling, we're all trying to just do our best, it makes your life so much easier and so much more peaceful, really. When we assume the best in people, it's, kind of inherently selfish. We're just assuming that people are bringing their best to the table when they're with us, when they're connecting with us, when they're talking with us. But if we take that perspective, it may not change their life, but it will certainly change our own. So I want you guys to ask yourself right now, what boundaries in your life would allow you to withhold that integrity that you want, but would also allow you to make the most generous assumptions about people? What boundaries do you need to set up? What limits do you need to set up? Whether that be for yourself or when others interact or communicate with you. How can you assume the best in people, but also put yourself first? talked about this in a few other videos, and for those of you who have been watching my journey and know my story and know my struggles and how I really cope with it, reading was a huge thing for me. And when I was struggling, when I was hurting, when I was feeling like the world was essentially out to get me, I really found hope in seeing what other people did to get out and seeing that other people were also feeling the same way that I was feeling. And, it's a part of humanity. Suffering and hurt and pain and trauma is something that connects us and it makes us human, really. So if we acknowledge that other people are experiencing this, everyone is hurting, especially now. And then I realized nothing was sustainable without the boundaries. I had to set up boundaries for me. I had to set up rules and expectations for myself. I wasn't going to be judgmental of the way that I was feeling. I wasn't just going to distract myself. I was going to accept my feelings and acknowledge that other people were going through the same thing that I was. I had to make more time for myself and less time for other people. I had to use my time wisely. I needed to bring myself up. I needed to do things that made me feel good. I needed to eat right. I needed to exercise. I needed to read and write and work on myself, practice self-care. I needed to do all those things that maybe in the moment felt like, just a weight on my shoulders and felt like it was just not working at the time. But in the end, it made me realize so much. It made me realize my value and how much time you really need to put in yourself in order to see a change, in order to feel a different way. So here are the 3 key things that helped me. Number 1 is self-awareness. I had to ask myself what I wanted, who I wanted to be, what were the things I wanted to do without judgment, without asking myself, hey, what would this person think or that person think? I wanted to know me, because for a majority of my life, I lost my self-worth, my self-value. I didn't even know who I was becoming at one point. So I had to just take a step back and realize, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? How do I want to act? The second thing was I had to communicate and express. So for those people in my life that I felt like were taking more from me than I was taking from them, I had to communicate and say, hey, you know what? I can't make time this week. I have a busy schedule and I just can't make it work. Or, hey, that comment you just made was really hurtful. Expressing that and communicating that to people is super empowering. It makes you feel like you are worth something. I can take time for myself. I can fight for myself. And then the third thing I would say is taking your power back. Taking my power back for me looked like reading and writing and learning about these things, these tools that would help me acknowledge my self-worth and find comfort in connection with other people who experience these things. Knowledge for me was everything. I wanted to know as much as I can to be the best version of myself that I could. And so taking back my power was gaining more knowledge every single day. But it really all started with discovering which boundaries I needed to set in place. For many of you, they might look different. They might be physical, they might be material, they might be emotional or spiritual. There are so many different types of boundaries that we can set with ourselves and other people, and you have to figure out what works best for you. And in order to do that, we need to find out where we are struggling. Where are we now and where would we like to be? And setting those goals in between. So what boundaries do I need to set in place at every step in the way in order to get to the next step? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you found it useful as always. Before I end today's video, I just wanted to announce that spots for the free coaching are still open, and I'm going to leave the link in the comments. For those of you wondering who this consult is for, it's for any parents struggling on their personal development journey, finding confidence, gaining connection with themselves, finding peace and happiness, starting to relieve that anxiety and stress, and really starting to find yourself again. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.